Elijah McClain, his name and face are being shared widely across the country now. Friends, family, strangers, and celebrities are calling for justice in McClain's death. He died in August last year, a week after he went into cardiac arrest when Aurora police officers put him in chokehold while restraining him. They were investigating a suspicious person call and encountered McClain wearing a mask. Aurora Fire Rescue also gave him a sedative after he was restrained. His family says he was just walking to get an iced tea for his brother and usually wore a mask when it was cold out.
Now, District Attorney Dave Young decided back in November that he didn't have enough evidence to bring criminal charges against the officers involved in McClain's death. This afternoon, though, the governor of Colorado, Polis, announced a special prosecutor will now investigate the case, and our Lori Lizarraga has been following the case. Lori?
That's right, Tom. Kim, Tuesday, just 2 days ago, Governor Polis urged District Attorney Dave Young to take the necessary steps to restore public confidence in law enforcement. Well, today, Governor Polis did a lot more than urge. He signed an executive order not an hour and a half ago that not only reopens the investigation into Elijah McClain's death, but also assigns a brand new prosecutor to the case. Now, the Colorado Attorney General will now be the investigator and the lead prosecutor on this case. This comes after the Black Lives Matter movement shined new light on police brutality cases like McClain's. Over the last 2 weeks, the DA said his office has received thousands of emails and calls. He told me yesterday, in one day, his office got 17,000 voicemails. But in our interview yesterday, he said popularity could not influence his decision. He said he does not believe there was enough evidence to file state criminal charges against any of the 3 officers who were physical with McClain. He said if Aurora or Denver Police Department had new evidence, he would look at it. But as it stood yesterday, he said he did not believe a crime was committed on the part of the officers. And I spoke to Representative Leslie Herod this afternoon. She said Polis's decision to finally get involved in this way came after seeing Young's unwillingness to reopen the case. Polis said Attorney General Phil Weiser is now in charge of the investigation, and he instructed him to, quote, criminally prosecute any individuals whose actions caused the death of Elijah McClain if evidence supports prosecution. Tom, Kim?
And Attorney General Phil Weiser has already weighed in as far as seemingly being ready to take this case and take it to the end.